Good morning, and welcome to St. Paul, United Church of Christ, Keokuk.
"What is your name?" "Legion," he replied, because many demons had gone into him, and they begged Jesus repeatedly not to order them to go into the abyss. A large herd of pigs was feeding there on the hillside. The demons begged Jesus to let them go into the pigs, and he gave them permission. When the demons came out of the man, they went into the pigs, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and was drowned. When those tending the pigs saw what had happened, they ran off and reported this in the town and countryside, and the people went out to see what had happened. When they came to Jesus, they found the man from whom the demons had gone out sitting at Jesus' feet, dressed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Those who had seen it told the people how the demon-possessed man had been cured. Then all the people of the region of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to leave them, because they were overcome with fear. So he got into the boat and left. The man from whom the demons had gone out begged to go with him, but Jesus sent him away, saying, "Return home and tell how much God has done for you." So the man went away and told all over town how much Jesus had done for him.
Would the children come forward for the children's sermon? Have a seat. Is there a special thing that you want to say today?
Yes.
What would that be?
It's my grandma's birthday.
It's your grandma's birthday? Well, do you know what we do when grandma has a birthday? We sing. Can you lead us in singing? Just a minute here. I'll give you a microphone and hold it up like that, and you start us out. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Sheila. Happy birthday to you.
I knew somebody would have to add that in a little bit. That's good. Well, we have a birthday today, and we celebrate another birthday, don't we? We celebrate the birthday where we believed in Jesus Christ. Yes, sometimes we grow up in the church and we don't even know when that was, when we started to believe in Jesus. But it leads to our love of Jesus and our caring for other people, and our life changes, and you know what? We become a totally new person. Isn't that right? Huh? We become a new person? Yes. Okay, so what ways do we become new? Can you tell me? I'll give you a hint. Love. We love one another. Can you say that?
You love one another?
Yes, that's a way. Do we tell other people about Jesus?
Yes.
Okay, so we tell other people about Jesus. I don't know, can the congregation think of some other ways in which we change? I guess I have an education project on my hands. Huh? One of the ways we change is that we follow the Great Commission, which is to go out into all the world and preach the gospel. That means we talk to our friends and neighbors and everybody about Jesus because we know that Jesus changes lives. Another thing is that we are happy. So, would the congregation please smile? Oh, that's very good. I like that. Everybody's smiling and happy. That's wonderful. Okay. Sometimes people are so sober when they're in church, you know. It's kind of like, oh, I don't dare smile. Yes, but we are happy and joyous because Jesus has come into our lives. Let's give thanks for that through prayer. Lord.
Lord.
Thank you. I smiled a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you.
For coming into our life.
For coming into our life.
And making us happy.
And making us happy.
Amen.
Amen.
Okay, now we have something that we need to do. What would that be?
Pennies for Evan.
Do you think you can carry all of the heavy pennies that must be out there?
Yeah.
Okay, go get them. If you can carry all those pennies. Can you carry pennies too? Okay, we have all those pennies coming out now. Very good. The pennies that we give are generally pennies that are around the house and would not even be doing any work at all, except now you gather them up and they work for the kingdom of God. God has encouraged us to use all the resources that we have with good stewardship, and it is very good stewardship to take some of that money that is just around the house and not being used for God's kingdom, rather than have it just lay there. Remember the story of the talent, where the servant had just buried what his master had given him, didn't even get interest on it or anything like that. When his master came back, gave it back to him and said, "I know you were a hard master, I didn't want to lose it, so I just buried it, I didn't do anything with it." And the master said, "Well, I don't approve of that." God is the same way. God encourages us to use everything that we have for the purposes of God's kingdom and not let anything lie about not being used. So we gather these pennies. And some of you have given dollar bills too, and there's a very narrow neck there, and I'm just wondering how they get those dollar bills out of there, but I do encourage you to give dollar bills as well. What? Oh, they get them out at the bank? Uh-huh. Well, they're very good at getting that money in the bank, yeah. Uh-huh. Yes. Okay. God encourages us to work for the kingdom, and I talked about stewardship a bit. Part of what we're doing in relation to the church, and I'd like to preach a little bit today about our discipleship and our work in discipleship, is putting together a brochure that we have to encourage people to come to church. There's one fancier one that we would probably put at businesses and that sort of thing, and hand that one out to you, and then one that was spread around neighborhoods and that sort of thing to kind of encourage people to come to Bible school and that sort of stuff. And I just want you to look them over. If you have any ideas of where to spread them around, I would appreciate your doing that. Why do we do this? We do that because of the Great Commission, to go out into all the world and spread the gospel. That's our objective here. That's what we do. And as we do that in every way that we can think of. This is one of the ways. This is the less fancy one. And I want you to, all of you, each and every one of you, to know that we have these available, and it's one way in which we invite people to church. What you'll notice about these is that it says, the less formal one says, "Come and worship with our church family." And the idea is that we are a family of God, as was the case certainly with the early Christians, and we want people to come and worship with our family. And this really requires that all of us be involved, young and old, and that means very young as well. And the idea is, in these brochures, to allow people to know pretty much what the information is right away. Have you ever had something where you just could not find the time that you were going to meet and where it was going to be? Well, on the less formal one, we put that right in front because I get a lot of ads in the mail and so forth where they want you to go through everything, so you have to search and search and search in order to find the time and place. So if you can think of any places where we can put these, I would appreciate it, because we're going to spread the news that here in this church, we want to have people come and feel welcome and be part of our church family. So that's what we're working on in relation to inviting people to come. I hope I haven't forgotten anyone there, but if you look at the more formal one, you'll find that we have a map right there. As soon as you open it up, we have the worship times and that sort of thing, and the kinds of things that the church does. And then in the less formal ones, we have the worship time and so forth, and a map right in front. And we have a chance to promote Vacation Bible School or whatever event happens to be. And I'm not averse to wandering around the neighborhood handing these out. You know, I can do that. So this is one of the ways in which we spread the news that our church is here and available as a family of God for people to worship in. Like I say, this is work that everyone can do. And in the modern church, it's one of those things that we have just somewhat forgotten about, to spread things out as much as possible for people to see that we do have a family of God here, and that we do want people to come in and worship with us, and that we do want people to come in and learn about Jesus Christ. One of the reasons why the modern church has forgotten about that is that in the past, we populated the church ourselves. You remember the times when people had 5, 6, 9, 12 kids? And they'd pretty much fill up a pew, and then those kids would stay around the area, and they would have 5, 6, 9, 12 kids, and those would fill up a pew. So the Great Commission kind of receded into the background because we had a lot of people in the church who were populating the church. But Jesus has the idea that we go out into all the world and preach the gospel, and because of our self-population in the church, we have kind of forgotten about that a little bit in terms of it being a priority. But today we are reminded that it is a priority. As kids move away, as kids have fewer kids, and 1, 2, you know, then we notice that the church is not as populated as it was. We wonder what's happened, but that's kind of what's happened. So we reach out as much as we can. Let's spread these things all over the place so people know we have a worshiping family here. We want people to be part of the family of faith because of the Great Commission. Because Jesus said that we go out into all the world and preach the gospel. Now the world is, actually evil is somewhat opposed to that. And it has subtle ways in which to make us discouraged. And God comes in with a message then that we are not done yet. We are not done yet. And certainly that was the case in relation to Elijah. Elijah had been doing the work of God, ran into a few snags, and he had just had it. He had just had it. He just couldn't take anymore because the evil queen Jezebel was about to kill him because he had shown up the prophets of Baal, you see. The prophets of Baal had worshipped an idol, basically a fertility god, and he had shown that that fertility god really couldn't do anything. And then he killed all the prophets of Baal. Jezebel then went after him, and he had had enough. Elijah, he just said he'd had enough. So what did God do? God said, you're not done yet. That's what God's saying to us too in the modern church. You're not done yet. You're not done yet. Listen to what we read. What we read in the Bible about Elijah's predicament. Now Ahab told Jezebel everything that Elijah had done in showing up the prophets of Baal, and how they could not call down fire from heaven for a sacrifice, but Elijah could. And how he had killed all the prophets with a sword. Now Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah to say, may the gods deal with me, be it ever so severely, if by this time tomorrow I do not make your life like one of them. In other words, that I'm going to kill you, she says. Elijah was afraid and ran for his life. When he came to Beersheba in Judah, he left his servant there while he himself went a day's journey into the desert. He came to a broom tree, sat down under it, and prayed that he might die. I've had enough, Lord, he said. Take my life. I'm no better than my ancestors. Then he lay down under the tree and fell asleep. He figured he was done for. He was just sick of it. All at once an angel touched him and said, get up and eat. He looked around, and there by his head was a cake of bread baked over hot coals and a jar of water. He ate and drank and lay down again. The angel of the Lord came back a second time and touched him and said, get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you. Now he's ready to die. What's this angel talking about? A journey? So he got up and ate and drank. Strengthened by that food, he traveled 40 days and 40 nights until he reached Horeb, the mountain of God. There he went into a cave and spent the night. We see in this passage that God didn't leave Elijah alone. God had work to do. God didn't have time for this because Elijah had some things to do. He couldn't just lay down and ask to die. He was fed up by the threats of Jezebel, but God had more for him to do. God said, and we read in the Bible, go back the way you came and go to the desert of Damascus. When you get there, anoint Hazael, king over Aram, and also anoint Jehu, the son of Nimshi, king over Israel, and anoint Elisha, son of Shaphat from Abel-Mahal, to succeed you as a prophet. Jehu will put to death any who escape the sword of Hazael, and Elisha will put to death any who escape the sword of Jehu. Yet I reserve 7,000 in Israel, all those whose knees have not bowed down to Baal, and all whose mouths have not kissed him. You have more to do, Elijah. You can't just lay down. For one thing, you have to choose a successor. For another thing, you have to do what I am asking you to do in terms of these kings. You're not done yet. You're not done yet. Now, there are times, like Elijah, when we think we're done doing God's work. When we think things look bad and we think that we've about had it, God tells us that we're not done yet. God had a prophetic message for Israel, and it needed to be delivered. In our modern world, we face challenges similar to those that Elijah faced. And our old adversary is waiting for us, waiting to possess us. And the demoniac that Jesus healed is a good example of that. Evil wants to take away hope. Evil wants to put despair in its place. Evil wants us to lay down and go to sleep like Elijah did. Evil wants to have us be fed up. Evil wants us to, like the demoniac, go off and live in the tombs and not really be part of our society anymore. Evil wants us to give up. We have modern demons when someone is taken over by greed somebody is taken over and follows a murderous impulse and mass shootings, of which we have many now. Oh, we have demons today as well. We might not think of them as being separate entities, but they're there. And we have the influence of evil in our world. The same evil that influenced Elijah when he just wanted to lay down, say he was done. We have demons in our world now that tell us it's hopeless. When we had the hymn, His Eye is on the Sparrow, it spoke of that, right? Of hope being gone, then God comes and hope is present again. But evil wants us to feel a lack of hope. Evil wants us to feel despair. Evil wants us to stop working. Evil wants us to be discouraged. Now, we might think that that's just common sense. All the circumstances tell us that we should be discouraged. All the circumstances tell us that we should lose hope. Why, anybody with any sense would think that our efforts are futile. That's the power of evil. It has the power to make us think that way. It has the power to make us think that way. Evil wants us to lose hope. Evil wants us to think in negative ways. Walk for me a minute with the demoniac. He's not wearing clothing, talking all sorts of strange things because he hasn't been in society for a long time. He's losing his mind because he hasn't been around people much, doesn't know what's appropriate anymore. Let's walk among the gravestones and the tombs. Let's go into one of those tombs and we find ourselves with the dank walls and the darkness. All of those things that speak of death and no further life. We feel the dampness. And again, we begin to feel a kind of an uncomfortable feeling. What's happened here? Why are we staring off into space with despair and not thinking about any bright future? Because we're taken over. That's how evil takes us over. We have an adversary. There's a story about Norman Cousins. It's an old book, Anatomy of an Illness. And in that book, he talks about how he experienced a kind of an illness in which the doctor wasn't sure exactly what it was, but he knew that Norman's body was shutting down. And he said to Norman, you know what? You're going to die. I don't know how long it's going to take, but looks to me like you're on your way to passing away. Well, Norman, and this is a true story, he thought to himself, well, I guess I'm just going to pass away then, but I'm going to be laughing while I'm doing it. So he got a whole bunch of comedies and things like that, and he started to watch them on TV, and he just spent his time laughing, and it got better. Inexplicably, he got better, and he wrote a book about it called Anatomy of an Illness. You see, our frame of mind can kill us. You've heard about broken heart syndrome, where the heart begins to pump less efficiently and so forth. Somebody's heart is broken, they can die. You see, the devil wants us to feel that way, wants things to die around us. And when we get that way, things do start to die out. Our social relationships start to die out. We feel despair. We feel a negative feeling within us. That's what the devil wants. And most of all, the whole objective of this is that we're supposed to stop working for the kingdom. We're supposed to say, well, it's over. I've had it. That's done. I'll just lay down and fall asleep. But we're not like that, are we? We're not like that. We turn away from that. We are only at the beginning of our work for God. And God has tapped us on the shoulder when that happens, when we're possessed like that, and says, you're just starting. Wake up, eat, drink, do all of those things you do for life. You're just starting. You have work to do. You see, evil wants to stop us from working. Evil wants us to believe the lie that it tells us. Evil wants us to believe the lie that if we just stop, we're doing the most common sense thing. But in actual fact, we've just begun at the point at which the challenges are greatest, because God then calls us to do some stuff. Israel faced great challenges quite often, and then God called somebody to do some things. Moses, others as well, Samson. It wasn't the time to hang hands and fall asleep. It was the time to do something. And the same thing is true in the modern church. We have work to do. We have work to do. We can't just lay down and fall asleep. We have work to do. And God is tapping us on the shoulder and saying, you've got work to do. There are a lot of people out there that need to hear about the love of Jesus Christ, need to feel that despair is not the final thing that's going to overcome them, that they have hope. Edmund Burke said something that's been quoted a lot in relation to this. He said, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing. You see? Evil would have us cynically throw up our hands, and it is powerful. And it is very seductive. It is very seductive for us to do that. For us to say, well, just common sense tells us that it's pretty much done, but we're only at the beginning of our work. And I'd like to point that out, the beginning, not the end. When the challenges are the greatest, that's when we are at the beginning. It's God then that blesses our work, God then that gives it power, God then that sustains our hope. And if we're at the beginning of our work, then what we really need to do is listen to what God is saying. God is saying, you're not finished yet. Then what we need to do is turn away from that voice that tells us it's over and turn toward God and ask God to tell us what to do. God will say, go out into all the world, preach, repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Preach. Hope is here. Jesus is here so our life may be renewed. God is calling us to give people hope. So you see, when we turn toward God, the sun rises. Things become powerful and new and good, and God has the power to, through the Spirit, create new things through us. And so, when we distribute brochures or we do the various things that we need to do in order to spread our word into the community, we're doing what God is asking us to do. And we're not despairing. We have the hope and the power of God behind us. Amen.
You have been listening to St. Paul United Church of Christ, 2030 Plank Road, Keokuk. Join our worship service at 10 a.m. with fellowship hour immediately following. Until next week, may God bless.